And again, I
100%.
think they're going to need to act very quickly if they're going to have a national search here, which I think they can. We're recording this. It's December 11th. You have until January 2nd when the transfer portal window opens. So I think you can. Now, the problems here, Joshua, are we just had a ton of turnover
Right.
at a number of Power 4 programs.
Right.
So a lot of coaches either just sign new contracts to go somewhere else, like a Matt Campbell, who would have been a logical candidate for this job. Or you have a lot of coaches that just signed extensions to stay where they are. Again, I still think you have some time and some flexibility. I think there are two obvious names: Kalen DeBoer at Alabama and Jedd Fisch at Washington. Now, Kalen DeBoer, let's just talk about this. So obviously he's got a good job at Alabama. I want to bring you back to the national championship game that Michigan won. Michigan beat Washington. There was so much narrative and conversation around that game as, hey, is Jim Harbaugh facing his successor?
Right.
Because we thought Jim was leaving, but that dragged out so long to go to the NFL that then Alabama suddenly opened because Nick Saban suddenly retired. And that's where Kalen DeBoer went. But he was like the hot name, and he would have been a really good fit at Michigan, right? So if that timing had worked out differently, I think he ended up at Michigan in that situation. So now, again, he has said recently in recent weeks, loves Tuscaloosa, really happy at Alabama. Like, that was mostly in response to, like, was he at all ever in the Penn State search? So that might not be a possibility. Jedd Fisch has coached at Michigan, he's coached at a lot of different places. I think you could definitely get Jedd Fisch. I think those
crawl over broken glass to get to Ann Arbor.
I agree. I agree with that. And I think both of those guys are offensive-minded guys.
Yep.
So if you're Bryce Underwood, freshman quarterback, I think
gotta be a big part of that. Yes.
Gotta be a huge part of it. You have to retain him. Which, you know, he signed a multi-year NIL deal. But
we know those contracts are as fake as a contract can be.
Right. And also, I'm sure there's language in there about like a head coaching change or something. But, you know, yes, schools have been very hesitant to like fight the enforceability of some of these deals.
Which I love that Georgia's doing it, by the way. I know it's a different topic for a different day.
They broke the seal on that. So, Joshua, my question to you is, first of all, can Michigan make some big swings here? Because, like, do you think there's enough time to do it?
There's always time when you're Michigan, right? Like, I think if this job would have been open during the rest of the cycle, it would have been right there with LSU, right? Like, people would have been debating, is Michigan a better job than LSU, right? So from that standpoint, I think that there's always time. Now, we also know that coaches right now are maybe a little bit more in the world, and especially with all the contracts that people sign where they're like, you know, if I can build a competitive team where I'm at, there's a path to the playoff, etc. So it becomes way more difficult. Kalen DeBoer, Jedd Fisch, two names that you named, I think are both obvious and at play. The one that I start to think more and more in the Kalen DeBoer mold is Steve Sarkeesian. I would make a run at him.
I would too.
Offensive-minded guy. And I mean, is the Texas thing maybe starting to get a little bit weird? Like, they were supposed to be one of the top teams, maybe missed on some guys. Like, you know, you look at the path in the Big Ten versus the path in the SEC, you probably feel a little bit better about your ability to make it to the college football playoff year in and year out there. You know, like, I just, from a standpoint of, if you're going to swing, you got to swing big. Like, Sark is a guy who I'd look at. And frankly, if I'm Sark, and I'm even thinking about it, like, if it's not this, maybe you're waiting on Lincoln Riley one day to leave USC and that would be your exit plan. Like, he might have some interest. I'm not saying this with any background information, but I think he'd take a look.
I think your point is super valid of, you absolutely call all of these guys. Like, you call them and make sure that everything's good. And you're calling Texas in a situation where it was, you know, microscope. You're under the microscope all season long. Didn't make the playoff. Certainly not playing for a national championship. Everyone was critiquing every little thing. You got asked if you're going to give up play calling. There was just a lot going on. It's a great job, but it's a very hard job at Texas. So yeah, I think the timing is everything in life. And I think that's why you make the call and you say, maybe now, if, you know, certainly better than last year. And listen, there were those, remember we had that whole news cycle of, you know, are Steve Sarkeesian's reps trying to get him an NFL job?
Yes.
It took a few weeks for Steve Sarkeesian to put a statement out that said like, no,
Yes.
I'm coming back to Texas. I'm going to be coaching at Texas.
Which
So that
makes me
means
think
the
that
crack is open.
yes, like it got a little bit weird for him is what I thought this season. And any of these big coaches where things maybe the narrative started to get away from them a little bit, I'm calling.
Yeah, I agree. So those would be the ones, and we'll see. I don't think you have to go internal to try to like stabilize things
You
with
shouldn't, in my opinion.
this window. Yeah, and again, it's
Yeah.
Michigan. You always have time for a search,
Yes.
a national search, if you're Michigan, but you do need to act quick. That January 2nd deadline is the key one. But again, you probably could wait to see if Alabama loses their first round game to Oklahoma. You'd still have, and again, enough of a wiggle room. We'll continue to cover everything, the fallout of what's happening with Sherrone Moore in Ann Arbor, especially once we get more concrete information. These are the stories that are really hard to talk about because A, they're very fast moving. B, there's a lot of online speculation. And C, there's a lot of like really hard topics to discuss, especially when you're talking about an arrest and potential charges. So we will continue to cover it responsibly moving forward.